Hi everyone! Terribly sorry you haven't seen me on my personal channel, but I'm doing a lot on my other channel, so if you do want to see me in several weeks, then you can go there. What I want to do here, though, is talk about a very important video that was actually given out by one of my favorite YouTube people, Hank Green, and his brother John Green, talking about human sexuality and gender models. So if you're watching this video as a result of having seen that video and seeing this in the video response request, this is probably pretty rare, then I want to thank you for watching the video. For all other people who have not actually seen the video, the link is down here. Basically, what the video is trying to do is talk about sexuality and gender models in a way that is all-inclusive. And this is the very thing I've been trying to do with my entire time advocating. Being able to explain things easier to people who may not have that information already. People who may not understand that gender is fluid and sexuality is fluid and it can change at any one given way, and that people are multifaceted and multidimensional and everything is all over the place. That is what I'm trying to do right now with my career. And I want to talk a little bit about a gender model that Hank brought up. Basically, he placed it onto a graph. But first, before we come to that idea, I do want to talk a little bit about how I came to that very same idea and managed to use it in order to revolutionize many people's thinking of what sexuality and gender can do. So just so you know, many of the things are down here in the description that I'm going to talk about. That includes the Klein scale model, the genderbread man, my model, and all of the explanations for it. I also have a paper and a workshop set up there. Now I want to talk a little bit about this person named Klein, Alfred Klein. He basically produced in the 1930s one of the most controversial psychological experiments to really ever happen to couples. Basically what he did was he went and he took interview after interview after interview after interview on various different topics regarding their relationship. And these were really awkward questions. They were really bad questions. They were things like the completely taboo, such as how often do you participate in anal? How often do you participate in public? And through his experiments, he discovered that not all people completely meshed the gender binary. And in fact, most people were doing completely abnormal things in accordance to the 1930s society. And this brought us to an age of exploration in our sexuality and gender models, leading to my career. Basically, his entire model was a scale. It went from 0 to 7, where 0 is completely heterosexual and 7 is completely homosexual. Then he asked varying questions, such as, how do you feel about this? And what did you feel at this particular age? Such as, I am a 16-year-old and I am going to be asked a question regarding, how do I feel about the men that I am hanging out with? How do I feel about them in a sexual manner? And I would say, well, society tells me to put a 0, but I'm gonna say a 3 because honestly, I do kind of have this slight best friend-like attraction to this one guy. And if it were to develop, I'd be fine with that. But society's not allowed to make that, so I have to be angry and say 0. So when he approached to this scale, he actually brought to everyone's attention an idea between the male and female binary systems, where you can be completely attracted to males, completely attracted to females, and any degree all the way to neutral in the middle. This was one of the most influential models to ever come to being because it was the first model that defeated the gender binary system, being either male or female, and that is it. Then, after that, it was decided that that just didn't handle everything, because then you have to add gender. If you are a male to female transsexual, for instance, and then you're given this entire thing of, okay, are you heterosexual or homosexual? Then that depends on how you are regarded. Is it the sex or the thing in between your legs, or is it your gender, the thing inside your head? And it's difficult to answer that. If you are a male to female transsexual who is attracted to men, then technically by your sex you're completely homosexual. But because you are a female in your head, if you regard that, then you're completely straight. So how do we identify that? And it's for this reason that the Klein scale kind of phased out for a while. After all of that, there were ideas about taking different aspects of a person, that romantic attraction, the mental attraction, the sexual attraction, the physical attraction, and then the behavioral attraction. And all of these were kind of the way that you would assimilate with a person. And all of these areas would be completely different. So you would identify as liking males in this area, liking females in this area, liking males in this area, and that would come together to form a way to explain your sexual identity. And it would work for gender. How do you feel emotionally? How do you feel physically? How do you feel mentally? How do you feel socially? How do you feel like this? How do you feel like that? And it worked. it was great. And that evolved into something that we call the genderbread man. Link down below. Basically, what the genderbread man was doing was connecting all of these facets of a human and then just putting them together on one picture. The issue here is that we are separating all of them, and then we are deciding on each single one of them how we identify, exactly how we identify. And there are many people who are like, well, I'm not exactly like that. I mean, I definitely feel like a female, but not completely. So the genderbread man didn't have a rating, but the Klein scale did. Now, if you want to look down here at Hank's video, he brought up a graph where you have male to female, and then you have a rating scale as to how closely you identify with male or female, and you could really be anywhere on that graph. This brought together the genderbread man, the idea of categories and identities and concrete measurements, to the idea of a rating scale, how closely you identify with various things, and it brought it all together. Now, the issue here is that on Hank's scale, when you have just male and female in just one, what if you're a third gender variant? You don't connect in any way, shape, or form. There's no area for that, which is where my graph comes in. So I wanted to explain a little bit about how gender fluidity is going to evolve. Every single time I am doing a workshop on gender fluidity or anything like that, and in fact, I do show this graph, someone is going to come to me with a completely new sexuality or a completely new gender identity, such as co-sexual. I had never even heard of co-sexual. And now we get to the incredibly important part of here. I am a very complicated person. I am a pansexual transsexual, currently in a relationship with a lesbian transsexual that is 12 years older than me. How do I fit on a graph? How do I fit on Hank's graph? Well, it's easy. It's simple. You regard the graph with multiple axes. You regard the graph with sexuality, gender, models, identities, and what you'll typically get is a curved model system where your axes are not just straight in one area, but they are curved so as to identify a imaginary line just underneath it. And that's what this model down here does.